Hello, my name is Mitchell Berg, and I appreciate the opportunity to present at the 2020 Social Equity Leadership Conference. The research that I'm presenting is on promoting tribal city and county relations. This is the research that I put together for my thesis dissertation for Hamlin University for their PhD program in Public Management and Service Learning. Here is an overview of the presentation, and we'll begin with why is tribal, city, and county cooperation important? To give you a little bit of context into why I decided to do this dissertation topic, I am the city administrator for the White Earth, for the community of Mahnomen, which is located on the White Earth Indian Reservation. The White Earth Indian Reservation is the largest of the 11 tribal nations in Minnesota, with roughly a population of 18,500. The White Earth Nation represents approximately 40% of all Native Americans that are enrolled within the state of Minnesota. Having been city administrator for 7+ years on the White Earth Indian Reservation, I've seen the challenge as well as the benefit of entering into interlocal cooperation agreements with the White Earth Nation, as well as seeing the challenges and benefits of my colleagues in both municipal, county, and different tribal nations. Tribal, city, and county cooperation is increasingly becoming more important because as the federal and state develops their responsibilities as well as their funding, they're putting more and more unfunded mandates onto tribes, cities, and counties. We also identify wicked problems. An example of a wicked problem is the opioid and drug problem on Native American lands. Unfortunately, though, drug dealers and drug users do not prescribe within geopolitical tribal boundaries. In fact, they can spread beyond traditional tribal boundaries, beyond that into cities and counties. And therefore, collaborating with regional stakeholders and partners do help to identify some of these or helps to create solutions to these wicked problems. Staffing is a huge issue. In the research that I conducted within the state of Minnesota's tribes, cities, and counties, limited financial and staffing resources were identified as a huge challenge and barrier to promoting intergovernmental cooperation, but more so, they created a barrier to identifying solutions to problems. And so by being able to partner with tribes, cities, and counties, we're hopefully being able to leverage those resources to come up with some win-win scenarios. Additionally, finally, the cost of litigation. This is never a win-win situation. There are cities, tribal, and county examples throughout Minnesota, as well as the nation, where you can find where a lawsuit has not only drained resources from those tribes, cities, and counties, but they've also soured the relationship to move forward. Again, we kind of talked about some of these barriers, but let's go into them a little bit more. Obviously, when I conducted the literature review, racism was a prevalent theme. Implicit biases, perceived or not perceived, these problems still exist today. As a result, that leads also to a lack of trust and respect. Past trauma, for instance, past relationships have embedded a lack of trust and respect between cities, counties, and tribes. A lack of capacities, as we discussed before. There is also a difference in worldwide views and perspectives. This is important because the native perspective as well as the non-native perspective can be different, and it's important to understand those differences when coming to the table. Of course, there's also power imbalance. And what do I mean by a power imbalance? Basically, when you come to having a discussion about possibly coming forward with identifying a problem and then trying to develop solutions is never good if you come to the table feeling that you don't hold any cards. Being able to have being treated equally when coming to the table is going to be very important, and we'll discuss that a little bit more. How do you promote and sustain tribal city and county relations? So in the research, what I did was I interviewed 9 out of the 11 tribal nations in Minnesota and about 30 cities and counties throughout Minnesota. And I asked them a host of questions on how do you promote and build trust and respect, as well as how do you achieve intergovernmental cooperation. So we looked at about 39 variables, and we measured those variables against those 2 other variables about how do you promote cooperation and how do you reach agreement. Of those 39 variables that we tested, trust was one of the only variables in the research where the leaders said this is important to promoting and sustaining cooperation. Here's a definition of trust. This comes strictly from, I believe, Webster's dictionary. But how do you seek to build trust? This is really important. And in my experience, as well as those that I had interviewed for this study, we looked at engaging people in an open, transparent, and meaningful way. What was really critical in the research was that I had looked at, does the frequency of communication, for instance, help to promote intergovernmental cooperation? Statistically, no. But the data did point that the higher the frequency, as in the daily, weekly, monthly, versus quarterly or semi-annually or even annually communication, the more frequent there somehow was correlation, or at least a direction that there was greater interest to promote cooperation, but it did not meet statistical significance level. I really wish, though, I would have rephrased that question, because I think it really it details not is it just the frequency of communication, but how meaningful and impactful is that communication. Because I think when you blend the 2 together, then you would see that there is a direct correlation between communication and building and promoting cooperation. Sustaining trust is also earned by building upon respect. How do we earn respect? Again, in the research that I conducted, as well as my past experience, it's really as simply as committing to what you say. Having that follow through, being intentional and being reciprocal. The other critical component that the research found was that social capital really helped to build or to get an agreement from start to finish. And what do I mean by that? Well, James Crow from the London Leadership Handbook came up with these three critical components to building social capital, especially within multicultural communities. And he found that trust, reciprocity, and durability were important. So from the quantitative research and the qualitative interviews that I conducted, what were some of the takeaways? Because obviously this is important to be able to understand what tools are in the toolbox to help cities, counties, and tribes that either want to or have had difficulty to create cooperative relationships. And the first thing is, again, that meaningful and reciprocal communication is essential to building trust and respect. Again, it's about bringing both people to the table and having this mutual understanding that each group will have an equal voice. Not one group is going to be talked down to, that they have an equal opportunity to be heard and to speak, as well as to have an equal voice. So that means having a vote that's equal to the other party. That's critical. Certainly face-to-face communication helps to promote trust and respect, but it's also important to have cultural competency in building that trust and respect. Commit towards learning each other. And again, it might be as simple as understanding the narrative and the perspective. Again, indigenous versus non-indigenous worldwide views are important. Finally, to leverage partners who can help you to build trust and respect. In the community of Mahnomen, where I'm at, for instance, I wanted to try and achieve an agreement with the city, the county, and the tribe. And in order to do so, I went to a third party, our Regional Development Commission, which I knew the tribe, city, and county held in high regard. And that was very successful to keep the momentum going. Additional helpful tools. Although it was interesting that intergovernmental working groups did not lead to promoting tribes to cooperate or achieving agreement at a statistical significance threshold, it was found that intergovernmental working groups were very effective though, and so they can be a very low-cost solution, because as it goes back to staffing and resources, a lot of tribes, cities, and counties don't have the financial resources to hire a lot of staff to do things, but yet picking up the phone and meeting can be a very low-cost alternative. Again, if you don't have the ability to create intergovernmental working groups, maybe initiate contact at the relationship level of a department head, tribal executive, or even the street level bureaucrat. This was really important. If there's not a lot of solid history with tribes, cities, and counties, or a lot of history of trust, begin with the focus on small wins. Oftentimes, creating those small wins helps to build and earn trust. Again, be culturally competent, and finally, reach towards a shared vision. With that, I apologize. I was hoping to come present this face-to-face in front of you, so this would be an opportunity for questions. However, I do want to give out my email. It is mberg10@hamlin.edu. You're welcome to contact me by email or give me a call. I'm City Administrator Rich Berg at the City of Mahnomen, 218-935-2573. Thank you and miigwech.